everyone. Hope you had a really good week. I've had a fantastic week because this week I've been very, very creative. I've been doing all sorts of things and I've loved it. And when I was talking to a friend, she said maybe this week talk about how I keep my creativity going. Well, it's a really interesting story, I think. My story, I think it's interesting. So now I am absolutely intentional every day in doing something creative. So I write. I get up very early, I think I've mentioned before, and I'm writing before 7, and I have a goal of a number of words to write every day. So that's one thing that I do. 2 times a year, I go away for about 5 or 6 days to just write and reflect and, yeah, things like that. I sew, I knit, so most evenings I'm sitting, if I watch the TV with my husband, I'm knitting something for the children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Less this week, but generally I take a lot of photos. I love going out into the park and taking photos, into my garden, and just finding something that's beautiful to take a photo of. I also realise that I'm quite creative when I cook, and I'm very creative with ideas. Now, I haven't always really recognised my creativity, and for a long time I had this view that I was not creative. I wasn't, at all somebody who you would think would enjoy that. But I went away on a retreat and I was challenged by the person who was leading the retreat to do a timeline. So I looked at my childhood from about the age of 4 or 5 and looked at what I was doing then that was creative. Well, I have one memory, one of the earliest I had, of me cycling around a little green that we had outside our home in East London. I was brought up in Hackney, and I was on my bike really trying to cycle fast, and I was pretending to be a TV or a radio commentator, and I'd be like, and here comes Jill speeding around the corner, she's the fastest woman in the world, she's the most amazing cyclist. You can imagine a child speeding around. It was a very poignant memory. But when I look back at that and reflected on the impact of that, actually, I've been a TV and radio announcer. I am incredibly competitive. I always want to win. And I'm very sporty. Up until about a few years ago, well, probably less than 4 years ago, I was cycling most days where we lived in Cambridge. My husband refuses to let me cycle in London, but I would cycle anywhere. Up hills. Cambridge isn't very hilly, but yeah, I'm a football referee, and well, I was when I was younger and fitter, and I'm a netball umpire. I just hadn't realised that that picture was something that gave me the threads that ran through my whole life. It was a bit astonishing. And then I looked and saw how I was creative when I was that age and a little bit older. So the big revelation came when I looked at my teens and I realised, honestly, how could you be so daft? But I was, that I'd won several music competitions. I'd won 2 art competitions. I played the violin, the piano, the guitar, the harp, and I sang. When I was a teenager, I made my boyfriend's family a present for Christmas, and I made a 12-seater tablecloth with batik patterning, which took me weeks to make, and matching napkins. And, batik is this process of waxing and dyeing and then peeling off the wax, melting it, dyeing again. Really very complicated. But for some reason, I'd never thought of myself as a creative. I think probably because there were some words that my parents spoke over me about, oh, well, you're not good enough to do this, Jill. I wanted to be a concert violinist, but my parents said I wasn't good enough. So I never thought for an instant about joining an orchestra and, playing in an orchestra, I just thought, oh, well, I can't do the soloist, I won't do anything. But if you saw my house, I've got instruments everywhere and I play quite often. So it was really interesting that my mindset then expanded and I thought, well, I am a creative. And if I don't do it, oh God, am I miserable. Really, please God, forgive me. I am so miserable, so flat, so unhappy. So what I've done is just put it into my diary. And like I said, go away twice a year to write and paint and draw. Do little bits every day, but it's in my diary. I have to be reminded what I focus on is what I do. And if I take it out of my diary, I don't do it. So there are 2 times a year when I go away, and those dates are in my diary, year in, year out, year in, year out. So what are you going to do? How are you going to boost your creativity? How are you going to really discover what area is your creativity in? I have a great quote from William Morris. I determined to do no less than transform the world with beauty. If I have succeeded in some small way, if only in one small corner of the world, amongst the people that I love, then I shall count myself blessed and blessed.